So, Anthony, I do have to appreciate once again the timing of the NHL season. Guys, thanks for staying with us for anybody that is.
Yeah.
Because we got to talk about the big this is the biggest news of the day because you thought this guy was bulletproof. This guy was Thanos compared to him. He was the ultimate Titan, the Kraken. It's just to say it like that. So, Anthony, the Islanders announced Lou Lamoriello will not be coming back. Let me get your initial thoughts on this.
Um, mixed feelings on it, honestly. First off, I'm shocked. I didn't think Big Lou was gonna be let go. Just the owners have given him so much control and so much power over the years, and trust him so much. I just didn't think it was going to occur. It was one of those things like, you believe it when you see it, and now it happened. So, with that said, like I just said, mixed feelings on it. I personally love Big Lou. I'm not gonna lie. I like Big Lou. I think I like how he operates. He demands respect. People don't screw around with him. I think he's kind of hilarious with how petty he is sometimes and some of the things he does.
Yes.
But I get why there are a lot of fans are happy about it. I mean, since their second conference final run, they missed the playoffs. Then they got in twice at the very end of the season, and they lost both times to Carolina in some uneventful series. And then this year they missed the playoffs, and common denominator through all that is they haven't really made many big changes to the team since that conference final loss. They kind of the Bo Horvat trade was huge. That was a big trade, but some say it came a year too late. He should have done that a year earlier, which is fair. But it also takes two sides to dance, if you know what I mean. So there's no doubt that he was hesitant to really break up this core. A lot of fans have been calling for it, and he hasn't done it. He stayed steadfast in it. He's doubled down, and I think eventually that's what cost him his job. But he's a guy. Let's face it. No matter how this tenure ended with the Islanders, he's going down as one of the best executives of all time. And when you look back at his tenure with the Islanders, aside from Bill Torrey, Mark, this Lou era is the best era the Islanders have had. The most success they've had since the glory days. And the most important thing about it is he brought this franchise back to respectability and run like a true professional organization. Garth Snow ran the team like a Mickey Mouse organization with, him and Charles Wang, may he rest in peace. Wang saved the Islanders. Without him, they're probably not here. But at the end of the day, they did wacky things. They made very questionable decisions. And, a lot of times they were laughing stock. Lou came in and changed all of that. He changed to where players get here and they want to stay. And yeah, he was set in his ways with the no facial hair and, no high jersey numbers and, all these ridiculous rules that a lot of people say are silly, but he has a purpose for everything that he does. Zach Parise last week was on an Islanders podcast that the organization runs, where they have former players on. They talk about stories, and he talked about those rules exactly. He's like, you don't understand why he does it until you go somewhere else. And Parise was saying, he found that out when he left New Jersey, went to Minnesota. It's like you go somewhere else, and then it really hits you, and you're like, wow. I now know why he does these things. I know he referenced no tape on one of the stripes on the socks. And, Parise referenced it's all part of a bigger plan that no one is above the team. No one is better than the greater cause of the team. Everyone's pulling on the same rope, which is why, again, you can't have one player can't have his jersey tucked in and have a high flashy number and a tinted visor, because that's individuality. It stands out. And he preached to win. You win as a team, you lose as a team. So I can respect all that about Lou Lamoriello. With that said, I could also agree it's time for a change. He's 82 years old, Mark, roughly around there.
Around there, yeah.
So, while there's no doubt that he's still mentally sharp and capable of it, the fact is, it's tough to be a general manager in the NHL. It's high demand, and when you get as old as he is, I'm sure it doesn't get any easier. So I get that they made a decision to get younger and move on, and that's fine. But I think fans who are celebrating and extremely happy about Lou being gone, that's okay. But just try to be partial about what he did for this franchise. So now the the page turns, and you move forward, and they need to find the next guy who's going to lead this Islanders team to the next chapter. It's still so early, Mark. No one's really throwing out names except one of Darren Dreger's tweets. He mentioned Ken Holland and that he wants to get back into it. That would be a terrible move. You just got rid of an older guy in Lou Lamoriello, and then you're going to and then like for Ken Holland to be a candidate would be just awful. So I hope that doesn't come to fruition. But it seems like they're gonna cast a huge net. They're going to interview a lot of people. And I'm curious, do they go with a guy with veteran experience, or do they go with a younger guy? I know Kevin Wheat, I don't remember the team, Mark, but maybe it was a year ago or so. He was in contention for a general manager's position with the club. I want to say it was San Jose before Greer got it, but I'm not positive. But nonetheless, I wonder if a new fresh face like him will be in the mix, or maybe they want to go with a more experienced guy. But the one thing I think this does change, Mark, is I knew Lou already said there was going to be big change this offseason, and people skeptical about it, even though his word said it was because of his action in the past. Now that there's a new general manager coming in, Islander fans, buckle your seatbelts, because this is going to be a busy offseason. This new general manager is going to put his stamp on this team, and I don't know who's really safe. I think I could say with conviction now with the new general manager, I would say Bo Horvat, Ilya Sorokin, and I guess Matt Barzal are probably, I would say, the three players who are probably safe to go nowhere. I was bullish with Lee going because, Mark, he's the captain. You know how Lou is with loyalty. He's very loyal, especially to a guy like Anders Lee. With a new general manager in tow, I think Lee's is a candidate to possibly be moved now. You name it, Lee, Pelech, Polak, anybody really, except for the kind of the three guys I mentioned. Elliot Friedman, Mark, mentioned just a couple days ago, and I referenced it in my tweet. And I'll admit it, I was wrong. But I had said with Boquist and Palmieri extensions getting close, I said to myself, well, that likely means Lou's staying, because if he was going, why would you allow him to negotiate those contracts? Do those contracts still go through? How close are they? Does Palmieri return now? So a lot of question marks. The only thing I'll say is I do think it's going to be really a very, very active offseason now for the Islanders. I think the demand from ownership is that, this is still a relatively new building. I don't think that they liked that the building was empty during the latter half of the season when it was evident they're going to miss the playoffs. They don't want that. And listen, I could be wrong. Obviously, I'm not there in the conversations, but I don't think this is a signal that the new general manager is going to tear it down. I think ownership wants to make sure that they're icing a very competitive team next season and going forward. So I don't think you're going to see a strip down. I just think you're going to see a lot of guys go from this core that didn't get the job done, and they try to bring in younger, better players who can help them reach the Stanley Cup playoffs and beyond next season. So I'll let you get your thoughts, but I'll just wrap it up with one. I'm shocked again. I didn't see it coming. And secondly, truly thank you to Lou Lamoriello for making this team a team to be proud of again. And I hope if you do choose to ride off into the sunset now, that you enjoy your retirement, and that your efforts on Long Island were certainly greatly appreciated.
Well, I'm going to get into the second part of what you're talking about, his legacy that he's now left on the New York Islanders, the indelible footprint that he's left. And hopefully the footprint that he's left is the one that the new general manager could walk in, even if they got a different philosophy. Let me first start by saying Lou brought this team back to relevance when it was in the darkest time in its franchise history. And I'm including John Spano in there, and Milstein and Gluckskern era, and all the bad times. They were absolute. To quote Mort Goodman from Family Guy, those were really awful times. Yeah, because they were. John Tavares left. Everybody looked over and went, "Are you kidding? Are this team going to be competitive? They're gonna be up for the number 1 draft pick for years." Instead, they not only won playoff series, which they didn't for 30 years, but they were a team to be reckoned with. And musical chairs helped with Barry Trotz getting here, Anthony. But Barry Trotz and Lou were on the same page. And Lou brought respectability back to this New York Islander franchise, which I think has been vastly missing for a long, long, long time. Now, that's for starters with him. Did he try to hold on to this team? Well, yeah, because imagine if this team had Ilya Sorokin 2 years earlier. I mean, timing on it. Sometimes you get a player that comes along, you think, all right, well, we can still do this. And Sorokin still is a more than capable goaltender doing that, because after all, his numbers rebounded from a bad year. But let's go back to this with Lou. And it shocks me, and it shocked you. And I agreed with you on what you said, where the extensions, he basically got it to happen. You're like, he's going to be the GM again. And then he's not coming back. First, Ledecky sounded like if he had an option, Lou had a lifetime contract. I think this is Lou basically saying he's just going to retire, or maybe he's got a new project he's looking at. Who knows? But and it's no surprise that the guys that bring Lou around, Anthony, Brendan Shanahan bringing Lou to Toronto. I mean, you can hear the admiration when Bill Guerin talks about him, or we had Jim Dowd on. But this guy is the greatest American hockey mind ever, and he's worked with great hockey minds, and probably the second best one in Herb Brooks. But this is Lou being Lou. He's the closest thing to George Steinbrenner that I could think of in the NHL. So let me again praise him with that one. And typical Lou fashion, Anthony, we had no idea. We had no idea this was going to happen. And of course, it has to happen in the middle of a Rangers season wrap-up show. So as our audience is growing right now, we got 615 people that are watching at the moment. So let's start with that. To further his legacy is going to grow, Anthony. You started saying it yourself last week, and even 2 weeks ago. You got Danny Nelson, who's in the pipeline. You have Callum Ritchie, who he got in the Brock Nelson deal, plus a first-round draft pick. So go Colorado, go win the Stanley Cup and give Brock Nelson one. And there's a chance that, and he's already got Cole Yzerman, there's a chance they might get James Higgins. And then we might really think about Lou in a different light. And I think this does have the youth movement. I'm going to tee you up to get further into that, Anthony. If that's the case, go with the younger GM. Go with the younger perspective. Go with a guy that's going to have a plan slightly different from what they got right now, and maybe one that translates into the new NHL. And I think also it's not going to involve Patrick Waugh either. We'll get into that in a moment. But Anthony, that's. Oh, sorry. The last thing
I was going to say that.
Wait. The Brock Nelson trade. That's his last gift to Islander fans.
Yes.
Go ahead. Yeah. I wanted to tee you up.
You mentioned Patrick. You mentioned Patrick Waugh, so I was going to say, yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't know what his fate's going to be now, too. As you saw with Chris Drury, he let Quinn go, right? Quinn wasn't his guy. So there's a chance that there's a guarantee that Waugh's not back either, depending on who this general manager is. He may have a guy in mind that he likes. Who knows? Could this, whoever they hire for this new general manager position, could he look at and see Joe Quenneville out there, John Tortorella out there, Laviolette out there and think that maybe one of those guys are a better fit to lead his hockey club, it's certainly possible. So it's really going to depend on who that general manager is. So yeah, Patrick Waugh is certainly not safe. And what you just touched on, Mark, Lou's parting gift to the franchise was adding a top 20 prospect in Callum Ritchie. I mean, that's fantastic for the Islanders. Ritchie's going to be on the team next season. He's got nothing left to prove in junior. So I'm excited to see what he has next season. But yeah, you know what? Lou's leaving the team in a much better spot than what he found it in, which, you know, some fans, talking to some other fans, you would think that's not the case, but it's true. Lou came into a team where they just, on their darkest day, where John Tavares left, and, you know, he put together a team that was a playoff team. No one thought that. They were going to be dead last in the league that you had mentioned at the top, Mark. But instead, they make the playoffs and they sweep the Penguins in the first round. So, you know, the new general manager is taking over a team, as you mentioned, has Danny Nelson, Cole Eiserman, Callum Ritchie in the pipeline with a potential. Right now, I think they ended the season, they would hold the 10th pick in the draft. If they move up in the lottery, that would be gravy. But at the very least, they're going to add another top 10 pick. And then on top of that, you have guys like Bo Horvat, Matt Barzal, Ilya Sorokin, Noah Dobson, who are you know, very good players at their position. So I think they're going to be an attractive team to take over with those core pieces in place. I think what's the new guy's biggest task is going to be is complementing those core players and adding more youth and speed to the lineup. Because, Mark, as much as we could appreciate the work ethic and the motors of a guy like Casey Zizekas and Kyle McLean and you know, Hudson Fasching and, you know, those guys of the world, the Islanders have too many of those kind of bottom six, you know, work dogs in the lineup. They need more speed and they need more skill. And, you know, you see what happens when sometimes we have too much skill, but you have guys that don't want to work hard, like guys like, you know, Artemi Panarin and Lafreniere. It doesn't mean you're going to win. So you do need those lunch pail pieces in place. They're going to bring their lunchbox with them to work every day and work hard, but you need more skill. So the new general manager, I think that's going to be his top task. You know, you got Simon Holmstrom, who had a near 50-point season, Mark. You talk about a breakout year. 23 years old. You know, I think he's still going to get even better. So, like, he's a good piece too that they have there. So, I think that the core is in place. It's just a matter of subtracting the Pageaus, the Cizikases of the world, and adding better, younger, skilled players into the mix is what's going to elevate the Islanders back into, you know, hopefully a contender status. So, you know, again, we'll see which direction they go, but I think this new general manager is going to be very active in the offseason, and it's too early to say what kind of impact it's going to have on free agency because, you know, as much as Lamoriello is respected, Mark, he still failed to land a big fish in his tenure. So,
well, I'll get into that in a second.
So could whoever they hire as a general manager, could that person be more successful at it? I mean, it's speculation. It's hard to say, but I think that new general manager is going to have a kind of a sales pitch in mind heading into the free agency period that maybe Lamoriello didn't have, or he'll do differently to try. But I don't think it's going to change the teams. Like, for instance, I'm of a belief that I think the Islanders are going to go after Mitch Marner. Not saying he's going to choose them. I'm saying they're going to go after him. Does this new general manager have more of a chance to land him than Lou? I don't know, but I do think that's going to be one of the avenues that they go to this offseason.
You're definitely right about that. And let's start with what I've always said about Lou's philosophy on free agents. And again, I don't have this from him. I'm just reading the tea leaves. Lou's not a big free agent guy. Lou likes to sign a guy, get him here, and then sign him knowing he's got leverage and the long term. He did it with Pageau. He did it with Ilya Kovalchuk back on the Devils days. I can't really recall the big free agent that he landed back with his Devils days. He's a very much a team first guy. And sometimes I think he might think the free agents might create a sort of individualized mystique with a team. But like I was thinking about Steve Phillips referring to A-Rod as a 24-1 situation. But that being said with Lou, so I think first, I think the general manager that comes in, and Ledecky and Malkin, they're going to be like, go get us a big fish. So yes, they're going to be in on Malkin. They're going to be in on Mitch Marner. Now, there's a lot of things that the Islanders are not shackled to. And they're not shackled to their past in this case. Because Lou's kind of wiped that slate clean. First off, we said before about the high numbers. Lou smacking that down, and Josh Hosang would never have been wearing 66. You learn about you learn about being a team member and being a team player. And all those headlines that I said that the Rangers have that the Islanders don't, you might see some of them creep back in because that's what Lou is able to do. It would be like, oh, we got a headline that goes with the Islanders. Let me just check something. Uh-oh. He's over here. Uh-oh. No. He stops all that. So basically, if you're a player, if you do anything embarrassing, he's got your back. And you're not going to do anything embarrassing because he will kill you. So,
Yeah.
metaphorically speaking, people, sorry, or unaliving, whichever one you want to say.
Yeah.
But this is one of those things. He immediately commanded respect, and he also knew what he was doing. He knew how to add the right pieces on the way to the cup. The problem is when they're falling back down, that's when he has his trouble. And the Islanders are definitely left a better organization today than they were the day he took over. They were a nomad organization going through two different buildings that you didn't know what was going on with UBS. Anthony, I'll just see it to you and let you say a little bit more.
Yeah, listen, when John Tavares left on July 1st, 2018, like I said, it was a dark day. Like one of the Islander message boards, like Islander Mania, just went dark for the rest of the day because it just was so it was just everyone, it was gut wrenching. And Lou Lamoriello, you could make jokes about Leo Komarov, but what is the first thing he do? He brings in a high character guy that he knows in Leo Komarov to come into that locker room. He reacquires Matt Martin, again, a huge veteran presence, a leader. He pushed the right buttons in a bad time, and it wasn't the most skilled group, but it was the team with the right players in the right place in the right leadership, and they rallied around everyone's doubting us, and with Trotz in tow, they surprised everybody. And without Lou Lamoriello at the helm there, if Garcetti was still a general manager and Tavares left, I think the team would have plummeted in the standings for the next 5 years.